Hello, nice to meet you.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you maybe introduce yourself?
My name is Joshua. I was diagnosed with congenital glaucoma at the age of 7, and over time I sort of lost my vision. And today my vision is what I so-called non-functional. So my vision in both eyes are both less than 10%. My left eye I can see sort of blurry color, and my right eye is like looking through frosted glass. I'm also currently a student at Singapore Management University School of Information Systems.
Okay, so maybe you can share with us like more of the story about how you became like visually handicapped, because I heard like maybe you didn't get this visual impairment when you were young, right? It was kind of like a journey.
Most people, when they get it when they're young, they either inherit it from a family member or some kind of big accident causes the condition. But I didn't have any accident as a kid that would make me get this condition. But I also don't have any relatives that have glaucoma. So it's a bit strange how I got it. So my parents noticed that my right eye was looking in a different direction, and so they thought it was lazy eye. So when they brought me to the doctor, they were trying to get a diagnosis for, what is this condition and what is it? Is it lazy eye? And it turns out it's something much more serious. I've gone through, I think, about 10 surgeries for my eye-related condition. Yeah.
What was the biggest struggle of becoming like visually impaired?
I think when I was young, it was small things like, struggling a little bit to read, taking longer time to do certain things. But as I grew older and lost more of my vision, I think it became more major things. But today, honestly, truly socially related issues. So, for example, when you are vision impaired, it's difficult to, get social cues. Like, I get that we're both wearing a mask now, but like, if you're not and I could see you, I have no idea what your facial expression is like, or what your body language is like. So these are all small things that make it difficult to socialize.
So how about like your current like friend group? How do they like react?
I think for most of my friends, especially the ones that I have today, most of them already know that I have a vision impairment. So for my secondary school friends who mostly saw me walking around without a cane and stuff like that, it was probably a bit jarring. But I think the ones who are really cared about me sort of helped me through it. So I have one friend in particular. We've known each other for almost 10 years. Oh my god. He's seen that change and that gradual loss of eyesight, and even in some cases really helped me a lot.
So how do strangers like react?
One interesting part about this is that before I lost weight, I actually got less help. So after I lost a lot of weight, I lost like 33 kg, and I started looking like slimmer, stuff like that. I got a lot more help from strangers, and I cannot tell you specifically what's the reason, but that's an interesting observation. But in general, I think Singaporeans are quite helpful.
So do you feel that like you receive any like, I don't know, unequal treatment or like discriminations from society in general, or just generally just very helpful?
If anything, I have been given more opportunities than an average person because of my specific vision impairment. I think it depends on how you look at it. Because if you want to treat it as a disadvantage, if you have a vision impairment and you want to think of it as a disadvantage, it will always be a disadvantage to your life.
Can you quote some of the opportunities that you have reached out to, or that have reached out to you because of your visual impairment, this additional?
So one one central resource for people with disabilities in Singapore would be SG Enable. So they provide a lot in terms of support for people with disabilities to find employment and work skills. And what I have been to is their RISE mentorship program. So under that program, I was actually connected to this to my mentor, who's the head of digital trust at KPMG. And so for 3 months, I learned under him, so to speak. I met him and got to understand, what IT consulting is like. Other things I think are like, for example, how I got my first internship. People might be willing to give me more of a chance, especially if they see something that they don't expect. So how I got my first internship was, to summarize a little bit, there was an event that Grand Hyatt Singapore, the hotel, organized. Part of that was to lead people with vision impairment around the National Galleries. I was being led around by this Grand Hyatt staff. He asked me, what do you want to do after you graduate from poly? So this was when I was still studying for my diploma in marketing. And at that time I told him, I'm interested in trying PR, right, public relations. And he said, if you want to talk about PR, there's the PR girl right behind you, right? So this lady, she was like, you want to do PR, and like what makes you want to try this career path? And so we talked a lot. By the end of the session, this was during a point in time when I had to look for an internship, and if I didn't find one myself, the school would just assign one to me. And so I thought, I'd rather have that variable in my control, right? So I thought, she never told me anything about their internship program. They don't seem to have one, but maybe I can ask them and see whether they're willing to take on an intern. And my thought process was, well, if I don't ask, I'll never know the answer. And if I ask and the answer is no, then I'll never see her again. So I decided to just ask her, and she was like, we are not hiring interns now. We haven't hired interns in quite a long time. But let me talk to my boss and I'll get back to you. And then within 2 weeks, they sent me a letter of agreement to sign a contract to intern with them. I think sometimes it's more about putting yourself out there. And this is whether you do or don't have a disability. So over time, I found myself working with different organizations like Guide Dog Singapore, like Edge Empathy, which is a non-profit, and some other organizations to sort of partner with them either as a representative or facilitator of events, or even at one point in time I helped Edge Empathy sort of pioneer what they do now as a cooking lesson for the blind. I wanted to try this recipe, and my mom was like, no, you cannot do that, you're going to burn down the house. And I realized that, so why not? You don't let me try, I'm not going to learn how to do it. Eventually I need to learn how to cook for myself, right? And I find it enjoyable. And I realized that if my mother thinks that way, probably a lot of other people think that way as well, that people with vision impairment should not cook or else they will burn down the house or get into accidents or hurt themselves. So I talked to that director, and him and I and a group of other people worked together to pioneer this cooking class. So we did some trial lessons. Now that entire program has spun into its own social enterprise, which I'm no longer involved with, but I'm quite happy to see it evolve into that stage. So now that social enterprise is called Fortitude Colina. I think a natural evolution of me helping and volunteering with all these projects is that people want to hear from my perspective. I've gone back to Temasek Polytechnic to speak to the staff in their social inclusion events. I've also done a TEDx, and I've also spoken for Microsoft at one of the events. So I think this is something that number one, I find it very fulfilling, right? To be able to talk to people on such a public platform, helping them understand people with vision impairment like myself.
Can you tell us more about maybe your passions and what you do in your free time or this?
I recently, sort of about a year ago, picked up growing plants. I was a bit stressed, so I decided, I think I need a hobby, because at that point in time I have been doing any combination of school, work, volunteer stuff, and all sorts of other things just non-stop. And I wasn't doing a lot of things for fun. So I picked up, growing plants as a hobby just to de-stress. I think through that experience of growing plants, it gave me a sense of purpose every day. So even if it's just to get up, drop the fertilizer in, and that's it for the day, I think that routine is very helpful. So it can be very therapeutic. I don't really understand why, but I know it seems to work. And eventually when the plants grow and you see that they're doing well, it also gives you that sense of satisfaction.